There are a couple of things I wanted to do over this weekend, and some things we have to do, or you have to do. And I'll start with this. Even somebody said I could do it at the end. It's the evaluation. I don't know if you are aware of it and in which way you are aware of it. I just got an email telling me there's an obligatory evaluation of this course, and saying of this course means it's a little bit a problem. I don't know how often they have to do it every couple of years, and of course what you can do, the only thing you can do is to evaluate this course, meaning what you attend. The idea behind it is a different one, though. It is the evaluation of this course in general. Meaning, whatever I do, whatever crap this is, you have to evaluate, or you will evaluate. But what you actually do is you evaluate the usefulness or not usefulness of this course. European integration, blah, blah, blah. So whatever crap I do is going into this evaluation of the general course. Whatever I excel in will go into this as well. It's a little bit a problem, of course, because the idea behind it is the course and not the course, if you understand what I mean. Okay, I'll talk about this a little bit about this later, because it is actually not about what I'm going to talk about is not this evaluation, but it's a general problem we have. It's a general problem we have, and this is the first part I wanted to do today. I thought I would have to do more about this evaluation. But what I'm going to do, or what I'm supposed to do, is I just give this to you, to one of you. She said the first in the first row, which is you. And the questionnaires will be distributed. They have to be collected after being completed, and then handed into office 218. So there's not much involved in, you can do it at home. We can spend, I don't know how long it would take, we can spend some time doing it here. It is actually probably about 10 minutes maximum. In any case, it has to be done. The other thing is, it has to be done, is Europe. And this is the first part. I wanted to talk a little bit about it. We have to do Europe. It means, amongst other things, that we have to cope with a huge amount of reflections, regulations that simply come from Europe. I had to fly here because flying is cheaper than the train, taking the train. So I was flying into this. They have a new regulation now, apparently, that after check-in, you should go immediately to the boarding gate. due to new EU security regulations. So you cannot check in, then stroll around, and then go whenever it suits you, you think it's time, go to the boarding gate. Now, nobody controls it. But supposedly this is EU regulation. I never came across this EU regulation as such, only on the airport, which is completely nonsense. Because if I can check in 24 hours before departure time on the internet, it would mean I should go immediately to the airport, and then the boarding gate is not open, actually. So some people are sitting there and making some regulations for what, not knowing really what it is about. So EU, we have to cope with it, and we will cope with it if we are EU citizens in one way or another. I think it's Sunday week for the elections. Now you can make your cross or you don't, but in any way you are doing something about Europe. Things like this. So what it is about. The other thing I wanted to do is a little bit about methodology. And it is linked to something I said already. And it is linked then to the next part, the essays you are going to write, what it is about and what you are actually doing there, or what you should be doing there. The one thing is you have a topic, you choose your topic. The other thing is, what do you do with the topic? Simply delivering a description, which may be nice or not, or is it about something else? And then we'll talk about it in general. We'll talk about the topics you have been choosing. But then we will talk as well about something more in detail, meaning we'll pick one or the other essay out, not individually to support the work on this in particular, but in terms of a topic, how you approach actually a topic when it comes to what is basically the analysis. So that's the program for today and tomorrow, meaning for today and tomorrow, the picking individual topics may be simply as well that we then talk about the topic, not so much in terms of the essay, of writing the essay, but about the topics. I'm getting more and more aware of it. If we are talking about European integration, a failed project, still being pro-European, I'm increasingly getting aware of it, that there is not much that actually worked out. There was recently the probably last summit under the leadership under Mr. Juncker, and I was reading an article in the German Handelsblatt. It was an interview with a green politician, and he said, actually, there had been some things he did not completely mess up. So we shouldn't be too strict with him. And this is one of the problems I see with the European Union. I'll just throw this out first, and then we can discuss it. And then I'll come back trying to summarize this. There are people Some we know by name. Some may know one or the other personally. And then they are doing their job. There you see the link to the questionnaire. They are doing their job and they are not really knowing what it is about. When I asked for the questionnaires, she said, I don't know what it is about. I just, what kind of course is it? You get the questionnaires. So, Mr. Juncker, Mr. Delors, you name them, or the commissioners, or the European parliamentarians, or the whichever actors they are on the European stage, do a job, have their personalities, they are personally responsible for whatever they are doing, and at the same time, they are caught in some kind of structures. And the question is then, how much, I use this term now, power do they actually have to do a good job, a bad job, or to influence the direction in which policies are developing? It is something in any kind of job, some problem we face. But if you are dealing with such an important institution like European integration, mind I used European integration as an institution, it is really something that matters. Not only on a personal level, but on a very general level, influencing everybody of us. There you see something, I got an email from one of you saying, if others don't know where it goes, I would join in. This, if others, it was a funny thing. We are teaching, be aware of it. We are working on something where nobody knows where it goes. We have this decision now, Brexit, and finally it turns out we don't have a Brexit, possibly. I'm still convinced that we will have. But some people say, no, possibly we don't have a breakfast, and they stay in the European Union. This was actually the funny thing with this last summit. It was postponed because, in a way, Mr. Juncker wanted to say farewell to Ms. May and to Britain. And then they said, well, we cannot postpone any further. We have to do it now. We have to go for the summit. So, be aware of it. We are working on any political issue, but in particular on such thing like European Union, with something where we do not know the result. If you do political science, if you look at the government of Austria, you don't know what is going to happen if something like a tiny change in the constellation happens. This may be international, this may be on the national level. And you never know. Be aware of it. And it makes it so exciting to work on this field, and it makes it impossible to work on it. It may be in whichever mood one of the top politicians takes a decision, and the entire model you built, the entire perspective you had been working on, collapses, completely. And this is something hugely exciting and hugely difficult, because we cannot say, at least not in a definite way, okay, these are the structures. We have every 4 years, I don't know exactly in Austria, we have elections. In general, we can say in European democracies, we have every 4 to 5 years elections. That's the ordinary democratic circle. Some people would have been loving seeing it, and then there was a vote against them, distrust, lack of confidence, and they had to go to elections. Sometimes it happens because of their policies, sometimes it happens because, if you have a country like this, because something happens in Lower Austria, or political decision is taken in Carinthia. This is not a fixed system. If you look at what happened in Germany, the change of parties, the strength of the AfD, unexpected for many. In hindsight, you always can say, well, it was foreseeable. This was the constellation. It was pretty clear that something like this would happen. But you cannot predict it, and you have to live in political science, not in political reality. That's another thing. In political science, you have to work with this. I do not know. I can describe the situation, and I should go beyond description, but as we are not really able to go beyond description, we are continuing to enter into errors. You wanted to say?
For me, this doesn't only sound exciting, it sounds also like an ongoing amount of work I have in my future as political scientist.
If you find somebody who employs you, that's the problem. I say this now not only in pragmatic terms, but part of the problem is, now it's always wrong to say nobody, but nobody is interested in knowing too much. This is something we can say to some extent as part of the knowledge base of political science. Politicians in general are only interested in securing their candidacy, their term of reference, whatever it is, in whichever position they are. Now you can say, okay, as political scientist, I'm not into this cycle, but I'm working on in academia, in institutions that are interested in research. And in research, we have different interests. We are not interested in what happens in 4 years, but we are interested in what happens in 100 years. I was, for different reasons, I was the last 2 or 3 days, a couple of times confronting myself with exactly this question I'm asking again now. What will people say in 100 years, in 50 years, in 100 years, in 200 years about our societies, European societies in 2019 or in the early 2000s? Always have this in mind when you are thinking about Europe in the middle of the 19th century, which was the period of building nation states, where we today think, well, this is obvious. You can't live with these little princedoms and all these things. You have to build a nation state. This is an institution that makes it possible to develop economic activities, to have, at that time they could have used the term a single market for the many little princedoms, and building a nation state, making it possible to work in a different framework, be more effective, be more productive, fostering economic activities and that. And then there was Michael Kohlhaas, don't know if you read Kleist, who actually was practicing it. And this was a no-go area. And this is something where we have today conflicts about the global agenda, global political agenda. Where is Europe standing and where is it going? Including human rights, migration. If you look at migration, what is going on there today, you will very soon enter a sphere where at least, and I don't want to discuss it now, but where at least you have to ask, is it really so clear that we take this or that position? I'm definitely in favor of migration, migrating more or less my entire life, but I'm living now in Berlin, in an area of Berlin where you have a huge amount of Turkish residents. I love it, actually. But I was writing an email to a Turkish friend the other day and saying, I'm wondering if this is a ghetto. I don't know if anybody knows Berlin. It's the area of NEUKOELLN. I have the impression that it's a little bit of a ghetto, because you have a rate of people from Turkey that is probably near to 80–90%. You go into any shop, if you don't speak German, speak Turkish. Don't hope that you get along with English. I don't know, you may get along with English, but most likely with Turkish it's not a problem. As I said, I love it. But at the same time, if you face this situation and you see a well-integrated, you can see it in different ways, you can see a well-integrated community, historically, these had been the people who had been excluded when they came as guest workers. I can remember this. When they had been living under conditions no German would have accepted. Now their living standard is definitely much better than it had been when they arrived. I was I was a couple of years ago with students in Berlin, actually, talking to a Turkish teacher, and she said, I try to work out concepts of integration. It doesn't work. I, as special support teacher, I'm not allowed to really work on integration, because the German teachers, the German system, not only the teachers, the German system doesn't allow me. So in this way, there is this idea, at least, is this a ghetto? Do they actually do exactly what they did before, now in different terms? Before, they had been living with 6 people, 8 people in a small room. Now they are living with 80% of the people in a relatively small room of the city and not being allowed to fully integrate. And of course, not being interested in being fully integrated, because why should they? They get their simmets, they get their tea, they get their tea even in the nice little teacups as they are used to them from home. You have the same, go to Brussels. You have a German community. Well, I shouldn't say German community, because you have, of course, the German community in Brussels anyway, or in Belgium, the 3 communities. But in Brussels, in Brussels, Belgium, you have another German community. This is the German politicians, then the German-speaking politicians, and then others. You have the English, you have the French, you have the Italians, and. So there is at least a problem that we cannot say, oh, well, everybody is free to move, everybody is integrated, everybody can do whatever you want, whatever he or she wants. And you can integrate. You will see it. The different ways of, I say something now, those who really managed. If you look at the figures, binational partnerships are facing difficulties. Simply a statistical moment. For whatever reason, but there are difficulties.
Just wanted to add to what you said, that this would maybe not be an example of...
Please a little bit louder.
Yeah, that this would not be an example of integration, but that what is actually called a multicultural society. And by this I go by the definition of the Integrationsfonds in Austria, which says that a multicultural society is one where basically people of different cultural backgrounds coexist. But they are not, let's say, mixed is probably not a good term for it. So what basically comes down is being similar to what you had in the United States. As in, you have a city, and you have a little Italy, you have a little China, and you have the people who live there, and they exist within their community, but do not reach out as much as they should for it to be through integration to some degree, if that makes sense.
Well, we have difficult terminological difficulties there, actually, that we have at least the 3 terms used without a clear definition. It's inclusion, it's integration, and it's multiculturalism. But taking this perspective now, from today we look back 1850s, let's say. Let's look from 100 years, 150 years ahead at today. And of course, nobody is interested in paying you for this, sorry. Because even if you are working in academia, you are depending on usually state funds who say or that allow you to research whatever you want to research. So, of course, it's not as strict as such that you don't, there is no way of doing other research than the 4-year term research, but the majority of funding goes into what can be used for immediate application. So, yes, it would be interesting to look at the long-term perspective and to look at the major tasks that are ahead, but we will have difficulties to get the funding for this. This is actually increasingly a problem. But what would you say on European? I use now the term European Union, failing or not. Where would you? Well, would you see it as failing? Would you say there is a necessary way that we go one way or another? And what would be your consideration, your reflection on this? And as I say, reflection as well, because it is something where you have to capture, where you have to try to work on this contradiction. Don't say, oh, if you have a good reason, say it, this is the way and we are going there. And in 10 years, 5 years, 25 years, we are there.
I think it's interesting to look at economic integration, especially the countries which more recently came to the European Union.